So glad to be joined by the UIW women's head basketball coach, Jeff Dow. Coach, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Before we get into talking about this upcoming season, I can't go without talking about last season. You guys made it to the Southland Conference Tournament for the first time ever, your first year as head coach. Looking back on last season, what sticks out to you in particular?
Well, a lot of things. Obviously, it was very historical in nature. For our program, as you said, in terms of UIW making the transition to Division One, qualifying for the conference tournament was certainly huge. And I can remember as far back in July, when we first had the team assembled all together as a group. And I'm not normally one that's going to have a long list of goals and that type of thing. And I remember saying that, I think the biggest thing we need to focus on is what do we have to do, to finish in the top 8 and qualify for the conference tournament. And I know with so many returning players, so many seniors, to be honest, they're coming off of a season where they had just gone 5-24 to end up in 6th place, tied for 6th with Nichols was certainly a tremendous accomplishment. To have the jump that we had in the number of wins going from 5 to 14 wins. I think we ended up 5th or 6th in the country in regular season. Improvement in terms of wins was certainly big. And then, the 3, you might call them epic wins that we had over teams that were in first place at the time, 2 of which were on the road, in Abilene Christian, Sam Houston State, and then finally the home win over Stephen F. Austin. Obviously, first time in school history. So certainly a very memorable season indeed.
Looking towards this year, unfortunately, you don't have the exact same situation. Not many returners at all. You have 4,
No.
Which was a starter. Just what kind of challenges does that present with you bringing in so many new players for this upcoming season?
Well, it has been a challenge. We essentially have 12 new players when counting one that redshirted a transfer last season, Casey Carangelo. So only 1 returning starter in Kara Spear, and then 3 other players that all played a fair amount in Star Omazi, Brittany Stafford, and Destiny Jenkins. But it's unique. If you do the math, we've lost about 75% of our scoring, 75% of our rebounding, 75% of our assists. So that's a major chunk of production that we've lost. So, and then of course, unfortunately, with everything and how things shook out with COVID, we did not have our team together in the summertime, and we missed a couple of weeks in the preseason as well. So, trying to play catch up. I do think with so many freshmen and newcomers, it's I have to kind of remind myself, on occasion to be patient, with them. And it's making the transition to not just college basketball, but Division I college basketball is certainly a pretty big leap for a lot of our players. But attitudes have been good. Work ethic has been good. They're competing. It's just there's a lot of, scenarios that unfold sometimes in practice that they've just never experienced. So, we're getting there, and the returning players doing a pretty good job of trying to teach the young players, what we want to be about. And so it's a work in progress for sure.
Most definitely. And you mentioned her earlier. She's a senior this year, Kara Spear. How has she stepped up and been a leader during this time, helping those new players adjust?
Done outstanding. And Kara, fortunately for us, is probably the highest basketball IQ player that we've had in the program the last couple of years. So that really extends into all phases, but certainly offensively and defensively. So she can impart, her knowledge and experience, and she knows, what we're looking for as a staff on both ends of the floor. Her role is probably going to have to – she's probably going to have to be a little more aggressive on the offensive end, but she had a really kind of an underrated role for us, and one of the unsung players of the Southland. Ends up 5th in the league in rebounding. Very solid from 3, good from the free throw line. I think she was also 5th in the league in minutes played. That speaks to how valuable she was for us, and a very versatile player. Sometimes she's a 3, sometimes she was the 4, and same thing this year. And so she'll certainly have an elevated role along with, we anticipate some of the other returning people too. And of course, it just, you look at the roster, there's going to have to be multiple freshmen that are ready to step in and play and quite possibly start, from day one and be in the rotation. So it's exciting. It's a little daunting at the same time, but it is exciting.
And then with all the obstacles that you've had to face in terms of the pandemic, in terms of bringing in so many new faces, the fact that we're talking about basketball and looking towards playing games in a couple of weeks, what are you and your team most excited about this season?
Well, I think, we actually talked today at the beginning of practice about the preseason poll that came out. And I said, what I reminded them is, they've heard about this. I said, just where you're picked is really, it's pretty irrelevant, the beginning of November. And of course, we talked about the success we had last year. And I'm not going to lie to you, that piece of paper that I printed out last year that had us picked to finish 13th, that hung up in our locker room the entire season. So our players saw that every day. And then same thing, we said, look, being picked to finish 10th right now, it's on paper. Paper doesn't win games. But as much as anything else, I know this is very cliche, but we're always talking about focusing on the process, just trying to get better from, day to day, literally drill to drill. And certainly when you have so many freshmen, they can only get better. And then as we talk about, the wins and losses will take care of themselves. And we've got a, pretty challenging non-league schedule. I think that will prepare us, for conference as well too.